Hey guys, it's Nicole. I'm back with another video, and today's video is going to be about a book I actually finished reading literally yesterday as of recording. It's a newer book. It's not the book that I thought I'd be talking about most recently, but it's the book that I finished, so that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get into that, I wanted to say thank you for being patient with me and my uploading schedule. I did make a little bit of an announcement before things got a little chaotic that things might change a little bit, and they have. This last week I did not upload on the usual days. It just got really complicated with all the traveling I've been doing, so things will still get uploaded, just possibly not on the usual days. Continue to bear with me while I get through this transition in my life and all this traveling that I'm doing. So it's only temporary. But that being said, I also want to thank all of you for being here, all of my subscribers. You guys genuinely mean the world to me. I love seeing you guys be here and interacting with my content and just continuing to enjoy what I make and be here. So genuinely, thank you so much. If you have not subscribed to my channel, it's such an easy thing to do. Just please subscribe. It's like a quick little click of a button and it takes less than a second, totally free, and you'll get notified whenever I upload new videos, which, like I just said, hasn't been as on time as late as usual. So if you subscribe, then you'll get notified anytime I upload new videos. Also, if you end up liking this video, please like, comment, and share. I really want to hear your thoughts. I always mean it when I say that. I love hearing from you guys. If you end up enjoying this video, please share, because that is the best way for people to find my channel. And I know that my channel is not for everybody, but there are going to be people out there that like what I make, and it's just a matter of getting my content to them. So please share my content. Also, bear with me a little bit today. As of recording, I am just slightly under the weather. I'm currently fighting something, who knows, flu, who knows what it is. So if my voice sounds a little bit tired or anything, or if I'm talking a little bit slower, that's why. But now that that all has been said, let's get into today's book. So I actually took this book with me on the traveling that I was just doing, and I actually finished it on the plane, and it's really good. It was really frustrating at points, but it was also a really good book. So the book that we're going to be talking about today is called The Book Club for Troublesome Women, and the author is Marie Bostwick. Now, if you watch my other series where I judge books by their covers and put them into ranks, you will probably recognize this book because it went into one of those ranks. That's how I found it. I don't remember where I ranked it. I'm sure I ranked it pretty high because I loved the title so much. So that's where I heard of it, and obviously was super into it, went ahead and got it to read, and I'm so glad I did. It's so good. So before I get into the blurb or any of my thoughts, I just wanted to talk about the cover just slightly because I've already talked about it in my other video, but one of the reasons I really wanted to pick this up and read this was not just the title, but it was the title in combination with the image behind it. So the image behind it, if you can tell, is a woman sitting on some sort of couch, some sort of place to sit. But if you notice, she looks like she's dressed from the 60s. Like, this doesn't look like a modern day person. You know, the shoes, the type of dress, the way she's sitting, doesn't necessarily look very modern. So it looks like the 50s or 60s, right? And that in combination with the title was really what sealed the deal for me, because the title, The Book Club for Troublesome Women, obviously implies that there's some women that don't necessarily fit in with the norms of their time, of their area, and are called troublesome. There's a quote, I can't remember who said it, and I'm probably going to butcher it word for word, but it goes along the lines of, well-behaved women seldom make history. And I love that quote. I can't remember who said it, but I love that quote because it's very true. Because when women are talked about in any era, there is a very specific way that they're supposed to act and behave. I think it's true for anyone of any gender, race, or ethnicity, but we're talking about women specifically because it's literally what's in the title. Women were and even are still expected to behave in a certain way just because it's what makes things easier for other people. And that's why they're called difficult, or like in this title, troublesome. And those are the women that usually make history and usually change things. I'm not going to always say for the better because who knows. But the point is, just doing what you're told, only doing that, never questioning why things are, or thinking outside the box, or choosing to do life in a different way, always gets women labeled negatively. And typically when women are labeled negatively, I think of them pretty positively, because clearly you bothered enough people to get them to say something negative about you, right? When I say that, like, I like to point to certain actresses in Hollywood, and there are actors too that do this as well. It's not just exclusive to women or anything. Like, there are men as well, but like I said, we're talking about women specifically today, so that's where I'm going to go. But there are women that you have heard are labeled difficult to work with, and the more you hear their story, like their actual side, the more, at least to me, that it's like, oh no, they were just asking to be treated with respect and wanted boundaries and had thoughts and opinions, but Hollywood didn't like that because they didn't like their opinions or didn't like that they were voicing their opinions. So that's kind of what I think. Like, I think of Katherine Heigl, who I've always loved as an actress, and I, don't know her personally, so I can't speak to her as a person, but I admire her professionally because there have been projects that she has worked on that she just hasn't felt like she's been treated right, or that felt just off in some way. And instead of just brushing it under the rug and just biting the bullet and getting it through, she speaks out and speaks up for herself. And whether she is being difficult or not in this situation, that's not for me to say, because I wasn't there. But to me, it's one of the reasons I admire her, because, it's not just exclusive to women, but typically, systemically, women are taught and raised to be people pleasers, do what you're told, never make waves, just always, go with the flow, do this. If you're uncomfortable, just deal with it, and then you can complain to your girlfriends about it later. And that's not fair, because we shouldn't have to do that. We should be able to say, hey, I don't appreciate the way that this has been going, the way I've been treated. I would like to be treated like this from now on, and then go from there. And then that's it. You just move on. So to me, it's admirable, regardless of whether it was needed, necessary, or whatever. To me, it's admirable for someone in any industry to make waves, basically, to speak up and misbehave. So that's one of the reasons why this title, in combination with this picture, made me want to read this book, because 1950s, 1960s, US history, women's history has always been challenging. The mistreatment, the just general systemic hardships that have been placed on women as a gender have always been present in pretty much every society. So when we're talking about this one, it's, to me, specific to the US in the 1950s, 1960s. And it was a time of great change. Feminism and the rise of giving women rights that they should have been given in the first place. and just the whole movement of finally viewing women as human beings was really taking place during this time. Not only that, but the civil rights movement was huge and massive during that time. It's when it really picked up speed. And it's such a big time of change that troublesome people are the people that changed history for the better. I mean, when we're talking about the civil rights movement, obviously the most prominent member you can think of is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Not a woman, but that's okay. We'll talk about him in this context because it applies to the era. He, at the time, was considered a very troublesome person because of what he was doing. But guess what? Everything that he did led to amazing things that we have been able to get today for civil rights for everybody. And we look back at history, we look back at him and think, what an amazing, strong, courageous person he was. And a lot of the time we do that with women too. You know, like we look back on them and go, wow, what a courageous woman that was. But at the time she wasn't seen that way. And neither was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was seen as just a nuisance, especially to the federal government. But women too were also seen that way. So to me, troublesome women, anytime I hear that term, it always means here is a woman that is not upholding to the standards of her time, and in fact is going to forcefully push her time progressively into the future. And I love stories like that. I just absolutely adore them. You know, even as a kid, I loved reading stories about women who made history and did things. And again, not just because I loved reading stories about women. It was just, you know, I was a girl growing up to be a woman, and it always is important to see and read about women making history, women doing things that are important, have purpose. And I love reading those kinds of stories. I have since I was a little kid. So I was so excited to read this book. So now that we've gotten through the cover, let's go ahead and read the blurb on the back, because obviously the cover is what pretty much sold me. I didn't even need to read the back. But just for the sake of telling you guys what the book is about, there is a kind of tagline at the top of this book and a review quote. I won't get into the review quote. If you're interested, you can look it up later. But the tagline at the very top before the blurb says, Margaret Ryan never really meant to start a book club or a feminist revolution in her buttoned-up suburb. So into the blurb. By 1960s standards, Margaret Ryan is living the American woman's dream. She has a husband, 3 children, a station wagon, and a home in Concordia, one of Northern Virginia's newest and most picturesque suburbs. She has a standing invitation to the neighborhood coffee klatch, and now, thanks to her husband, a new subscription to A Woman's Place, a magazine that tells housewives like Margaret exactly who to be and what to buy. On paper, she has it all. So why doesn't that feel like enough? Margaret is thrown for a loop when she first meets Charlotte Gustafson, Concordia's newest and most intriguing resident. As an excuse to be in the mysterious Charlotte's orbit, Margaret concocts a book club get-together and invites 2 other neighborhood women, Bitsy and Viv, to the inaugural meeting. As the women share secrets, cocktails, and their honest reactions to popular, thought-provoking, and controversial books of the day, starting with The Feminine Mystique, they begin to discover cracks in the American dream they've been sold, and that the secret longing for more is something they share. Nicknaming themselves the Bettys, after Betty Friedan, these 4 friends have no idea their impromptu club and the books they read together will become the glue that helps them hold fast through tears, triumphs, angst, and arguments, and what will prove to be the most consequential and freeing year of their lives. The Book Club for Troublesome Women is a humorous, thought-provoking, and nostalgic romp through one pivotal and tumultuous American year, as well as an ode to self-discovery, persistence, and the power of sisterhood. So, quite the blurb. We get so much context and information from that blurb. I don't even think I need to go into what else the book could be about, because it pretty much gives you the whole thing. This book is pretty new. I think it came out last year in 2025. Yes, it was from last year in 2025. So this book is kind of like a combination of historical fiction mixed with drama and the fiction genre itself, because the 4 characters that the back describes are not real people at all, but there are real historical people that are in this book, that certain liberties are taken because there are just some things that actually didn't happen, or there are some things that we just don't know if they could have happened because none of us were there. So it's kind of more historical fiction than anything else, but the story itself is completely fictional, but the historical moments and things and norms are real. They are truth. So it's like being transported back into the 1960s and kind of reading what it might have been like to have been a woman at that time. So before I give any of my thoughts on anything in particular, I am going to go ahead and read the first page, just give a little bit of a taste. There is a dedication at the beginning of the book, but I'll leave that in case you want to read that when you pick up this book to read. So there's kind of a small introduction. It's very short, not even a paragraph long. That's just on a blank page and that's it. And it says, on February 19th, 1963, a troublesome, imperfect, controversial woman named Betty Friedan published a troublesome, imperfect, controversial book titled The Feminine Mystique. The book didn't solve the problem, but it did put a name to it, shining a light that helped women who felt isolated and powerless find one another and their voices. That has been the start of every revolution. So, the chapters are laid out where they have chapter and then the number. Each of the chapters actually have names, which I love when chapters have names. It's definitely more work on the author's part to have to name the chapters, but it's something I genuinely do appreciate. And then most of the time, not all the time, there's a date there, and usually there's only a date there because we've gone forward in time. If there's no date there, it's just because we're still in the same month of the year. So, chapter 1, Members of the Club is the name of the chapter. And then the time we're in is March 1963. On a Wednesday morning in March 1963, 25 miles and yet a world away from the nation's capital and the rumblings of change that were beginning to be felt there, in a Northern Virginia suburb called Concordia, so new that the roots of the association-approved saplings were still struggling to take hold, and so meticulously planned that when the first wave of residents moved in the year before, the shops, the library, and church opened on the very same day, as if God smote the ground and a fully formed suburb had erupted from the crack. Margaret Ryan stood in a sunny kitchen with appliances and matching Formica countertops of egg yolk yellow, trying to decide what to serve the 3 women who would be coming to the first meeting of her new book club. Beth Ryan, 11 years old and the eldest of Margaret's 3 children, peered over her mother's shoulder, shaking her head at the small mountain of recipes Margaret had torn from her extensive collection of women's magazines. Why so many? Why not bake oatmeal cookies and be done with it like any normal mother? Beth snatched a recipe clipping from the stack. Anchovy and cream cheese canapes? If that's dinner, I'm eating at Melanie's. Every family has its smartass. Beth was theirs. And that's the first page. So if that sounds at all interesting to you, you should go check out the book. It is so worth the time to read. It's not that long of a book. As you can see, it's a few hundred pages, honestly. Yeah, like almost between 300 and 400 pages. So it's not that long of a read. It's so worth the time to take to read this book. I know that a lot of the time I'm recommending books and they're long and people don't have time to read, but it's so important to make time to read something. And I know we don't have time to read everything, but this one is worth the time. And I think it would be so great for more people to read books, and especially this kind of book. This one is really, really good. So I'm going to go into my thoughts a little bit now, but honestly, this book does rank at the top, or very, very near the top of all of the books I've read so far in this year, 2026. It's one of my favorites, and I love it for so many reasons. So let's get into those reasons. I will start with, there were so many things that made me so frustrated reading this book, and it wasn't because of the writing or the characters or anything like that. It was because of the situations they were put into, because of the time that they lived in. And don't get me wrong, there's still things in this era that we all get put into that we don't like, certain situations. But, you know, it was things based on real life consequences that existed in the 1960s in Virginia. You know, one of the characters, she goes to the bank to deposit a check from her job. Like, she works the job, it's her money. And she is not allowed to open her own account. She has to have her husband sign off on it. And she tries arguing with the bank manager and banker, and she's like, it's not his money, it's mine, I earned this money, I worked for it. They're like, no, we can't open a bank account unless your husband approves it. And she gets into her car and screams and almost wants to start crying out of frustration. And I can physically feel the frustration in that moment. And I'm just reading the perspective of a fictional character, but based on a real situation, because I think even in the back of the book, the author lists the years when certain acts went into place that finally allowed women to have their own bank accounts and do other things. And it's so crazy because, you know, we spend so much time taking for granted so many of the things that we get to have because other people fought for it. Other troublesome women fought for things. They fought so that we could have voting rights and bank accounts and credit cards and be able to buy a house and do all these things. And I feel like we take that for granted. These are things that we should have been able to do in the first place because we are not second-class citizens. We are all human beings. Every human being, regardless of gender, sex, ethnicity, race, anything, should get to do whatever they want to do. And I don't care who thinks that that's a radical idea. It is not. It is literally human rights. And the fact that we have had to fight for these rights is absolutely absurd to me. But here's where we are. And those are moments that frustrate me in the book. So if those kinds of moments frustrate you too, just be prepared for that. The story is really great. We go through so many fun, crazy adventures with all four of the women in and out of the book club, honestly. So it's so good and so fun and so thought-provoking, but there are going to be frustrating moments like that, and they definitely got to me. I would have to put the book down just for a bit and go, breathe. Just take a deep breath. The other really cool thing about this book is it's not just about pointing out how important women's rights are and were and needed to be fought for. There's also a very intentional pointing out of how the way the system is built, the quote-unquote American dream is built, is also harmful to men. It's not just harmful to women, it's harmful to men too. We go through an incredible storyline between Margaret and her husband, Walt. So Margaret's the main character, and she's married to her husband, Walt. They met in college, and they got married, and they have 3 kids, and they live in Concordia. And it's such a beautiful building of their relationship in this book. You know, we start out, we get the first glimpse of them. They have their 3 kids. She's a housewife. He's just an accountant or something. And that's their life, you know, we're kind of flashed into the middle of it. And then over the next few years, her starting this book club and discovering things that other people also feel that make her feel frustrated, she also discovers through finally getting to talk honestly with her husband that he feels the same way. That in a way, he is trapped too in something that he doesn't necessarily want either. He hates his job. I'll put it that way. That's not like a crazy spoiler. And she realized, wait a minute, it's not just women that are stuck. Men are stuck too. This system, this fake dream that we've been told, that we've been lied to about, honestly negatively impacts everybody. And it really only benefits the people that have started it, who convinced everyone that it's a good thing to do. And it's a really beautiful thing because this book is about feminism, and the point of feminism is not just women's rights. It's about rights for everybody. It's called feminism, the movement, the idea, because feminist traits, feminism in itself, being any kind of feminine, is deemed unworthy, right? Like when men want to insult other men or boys insult other boys, in the past, typically they'll say something like, you throw like a girl. What you want? Look at your dainty fingers. Look at this. Because feministic traits have been deemed bad, second class, negative. And that's why the movement is called feminism, because feminism in itself, being feminine, is not a negative thing. And that's why the movement is called that, because we want to get feministic traits more into society, into women and into men. And it's for everybody. It's being a feminist doesn't mean that you just love women and just want to uplift women and hate men. That's not what that means at all. Feminism is about making things better for everybody involved, including men, especially men, actually, because, I feel like the reason so many men try to make other people more miserable is because they're miserable. They've been put into this role that maybe they don't like. There are some exceptions, I will say that. They're the ones that are in power that are fine. But other men that are not necessarily in power, that do reinforce those things that are not helpful to everyone else, are miserable themselves. And feminism is helpful to everybody. It is. That's what it's for. It's not a movement to hate men. That's a lie that's been fed to you by the people who don't want you to know what feminism is actually for, because they don't want people like women or black people or LGBTQ+. They don't want equal rights for everybody. And feminism is about all of that. There's intersectionality in everything that comes with feminism, and all of the different groups of people that fall into the category that need to be helped by feminism. And that is what this book is about, that it is not just for women, that other people in the system that has been created for our society are suffering too. And it will benefit everybody to wake up and go, I don't need to live my life like this. There are ways that we can help each other and help ourselves to actually live lives that make us feel fulfilled and happy. And that's what this book is. And I love that so much, especially because this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler. So if you don't want any spoilers, now is definitely to close out the video. Now is definitely the time to close out the video. So if you're leaving, thank you so much for watching. But one of the things that's also really great about this book is it's not about hating men and hating your husbands and blaming your husband for, the situation that you've ended up in. It's not about that. Sometimes there are bad husbands. There's also bad wives. That's just how things work. And there is the character, Bitsy's character, that does end up getting divorced from her husband because they were not good together. He was kind of predatory towards her. But Margaret and Walt and Viv and her husband are beautiful examples of people who genuinely see each other as partners, not always equals. Someone's going to be pulling more of the weight than one of them, and then they switch off. You know, it all varies because life is not always that consistent, but they are there as partners that have built a life together that want to make each other happy, that both of them get to be happy, that it's not just we're following a script that was written out for us by society because that's just what you're supposed to want. As a woman in the 1960s, you're supposed to want the white picket fence, the house with the perfect kitchen that you can host as many people as you want because all you do is stay home and cook and clean and take care of the kids. That's what you're supposed to want. And men, you're supposed to want to go to work wherever it is. You work 9 to 5, you do whatever your boss says, and then boom, 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 that's what you do forever. And you don't question it. You don't want to talk about it. It's just what you do. And that's not fair because human beings don't fit in a box. We don't have to live that way. And that's what the book is about. But told through a fictional story of 4 women who have their own separate journeys to go on too. So those are my thoughts and my takeaways on the book club for Troublesome Women, and I love it so much, and I hope that I've interested you even just a little bit just to go check it out. It's such a good book. I hope more people read it. It's so good. So that is all for this week's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please continue to have patience with me. There is a possibility I might take a little break when things get closer to me moving. It's right now I'm in the process of starting packing up everything I own, and that is a big job. So hopefully, there goes my voice. Hopefully I will be able to continue making content and uploading videos because it does bring joy to me. But if it gets too overwhelming, I may have to take a little bit of a break, but please hang in there and have patience with me while I get through this change in my life. So thank you guys so much for being here and for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.